Let me just fix this camera angle real quick. Here we go. So, for those of you who are joining after this is no longer live, we are again reading in Treasure Island. We're going to be reading Chapter 13 in a little while. I'm just waiting a little longer for some live viewers to join. Usually we try to wait around 5 minutes or so before I begin reading. I have a tape measure. That's very random. But I happen to have it in front of me on the desk, and I picked it up. Also have this key that went to an old lawnmower. We threw that lawnmower away because it didn't work, but I kept the key because I thought it looked really cool. India? Is that what that says? Was this thing made in India? No. Indaki? I'm not sure what that means. That's probably like a company or something. I don't know. Forgot to fill my water with, my bottle with water, so I'm not gonna have water, but that's okay. And you know what? I just thought of something and I'm gonna do it. I'm going to start off every live stream reading a little bit from the dictionary. So, it doesn't matter what book I'm reading, I'm always going to start off reading something from this dictionary. I think this particular dictionary, 1983. Hello, I've got 4 viewers now. Welcome to the stream. Oh, it went down to 1. Let me move that so I can see the number a little better. There we go. Hi. So I'm going to be reading from Treasure Island in a little bit, but while I'm waiting, I got out my dictionary right here. Hello, hello, hello. So what I'm doing is, while I'm waiting for more viewers, I'm going to read just a couple things from the dictionary, and I'm going to have a whole bunch of videos in the future, and so when I read enough, eventually, I suppose I'll read through the dictionary. That's going to be really hard to do, though, because, let's see, how many pages does this dictionary have? It's got upwards of 2,100 pages, so interesting. Can I be a mod? I've never been one. I'm not exactly sure how to do that, so, yeah, I haven't really investigated all that. So, at least for this video, I'm not going to be doing that, but I don't know, maybe. Sorry, I'm bumping my camera stand. So anyway, I'm going to be reading from Treasure Island for those of you who are not, or just joined, rather. And before I start that, I'm going to read just a couple things out of the dictionary, maybe 3 or 4 words or so. Yeah, this dictionary's got 2,129 pages. It's got a lot of pages. And actually, I'm going to try to read through the whole dictionary next year, starting next year. I just need to read 6 pages a day, and I'll get through it all. And so, let's go ahead and read. Let's get to the first page. Whoopsie daisy. Bent the page there. All right, so let's read the first 3 words. Good grief. This is probably going to be boring, so I would ask that you be patient and stick around. I've noticed whenever I start reading, I lose viewers, but um, if just please be patient, and I'll try to make this quick and easy. So the first word is A. A, which is the first letter of the Roman and English alphabet from the Greek alpha, a borrowing from the Phoenician. The second definition of A is the sound of A, or A. 3, a type of impression for A, or A. 4, a symbol for the first in a sentence or group. And that is the first word. What am I reading? So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be reading from Treasure Island. But before I start Treasure Island, I'm just reading a couple words out of the dictionary. Yeah, I'm going to try to read the whole dictionary next year, just because I can. You know, that would be an accomplishment, something that you can brag about later on in life. Yeah, I stuck around and just read the entire dictionary. But anyway, I'm going to be reading Treasure Island in just a little bit, but first I wanted to read a couple words out of the dictionary. Just earned myself a new sub. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I always welcome new subscribers. I don't have very many, but I'd like to keep going up. All right. Second word in the dictionary, A, which is of A or A. First in a sentence or group. First class, A1. C, A1. Among logicians, A, as an abbreviation, stands for a universal affirmative proposition. A asserts, E denies. That's actually, what's my streaming schedule? I try to stream once a night, starting at 10:15. So I just started about 15 minutes ago, maybe more like 10 minutes. I try to do that. I don't necessarily do that every single day, but I do try. But this is interesting. A asserts, E denies. This is a little mini history lesson. So, the Romans used A to signify a negative or dissent in giving their votes. A standing for antiquo, I oppose or object to the proposed law. Opposed to this letter were you are, you the rogas, be it as you desire, the words used to express assent to a proposition. These letters were marked on wooden ballots, and each voter had an affirmative and negative put into his hands, one of which at pleasure he gave as his vote. In criminal trials, A stood for absolvo, I acquit, C for condemno, I condemn, and NL for non liquet, it is not evident, and the judges voted by ballots thus marked. In inscriptions, A stands for Augustus, or for Ager, Iunt, Aurum, Argentum, etc. A is used for Anno, as in AD, for Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord, and AM for Anno Mundi, in the year of the world, and also for Ante, as in AM, for Antemeridium, before noon, and for Antium, as in AM for Antium Magister, Master of Arts. In algebra, A and other first letters of the alphabet usually represent known quantities, the last letters being used to represent unknown quantities. In pharmacy, A or double A, abbreviations of the Greek anna, signifies of each separately, or that the things mentioned should be taken in quantities of the same weight or measure. In commerce, A stands for accepted, as in case of a bill of exchange. Merchants also number their books by the letters A, B, C instead of figures. Public officers number their exhibits in the same manner as the document A or B. All right, that was a long one. I'm not going to read any more. Yeah, it's like A and A. Or, yeah. So, it's about 9:30 for you. Cool. Alright, so that's all I'm going to read. I would have read more, but that was kind of a long one. So let's see. We're about 9 minutes in, so I'm actually a little bit late. I like to start reading by about 5 minutes or so in. So let's go ahead and start reading Treasure Island. And I like to show you all this every single time, but this poor book is falling apart, so I can just rip the covers off. I accidentally tore the spine off back in 2018. I was reading it in the car, and I don't remember exactly how, but I know I tore the spine off. All right, so we're reading chapter 13. Ooh, there's a picture. That's cool. 87, so this looks like there's about 6 pages. You didn't know. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people don't know that. I learned that in a history class once upon a time. I wouldn't have been able to tell you the specifics of it. All right, so chapter 13 is called My Shore Adventure. If you remember in the last chapter, if you weren't here, I'll let you know. In the last chapter, Jim was talking to the squire and the doctor and the captain. He told them about the conversation that he heard Long John having while Jim was hiding in the apple barrel. And so now they've just spotted land and they're about to go ashore. So this chapter is called My Shore Adventure, chapter 13. And I really wish I had filled my water before I started, because now my throat's kind of tightening up. Just give me a second. All right, here we go. The appearance of the island when I came on deck next morning was altogether changed. Although the breeze had now utterly failed, we had made a great deal of way during the night, and were now lying becalmed about half a mile to the southeast and of the low eastern coast. Gray-colored woods covered a large part of the surface. This even tint was, indeed, broken up by streaks of yellow sandbreak in the lower lands, and by many tall trees of the pine family, out-topping the others, some singly, others in clumps, but the general coloring was uniform and sad. The hills ran up clear above the vegetation, in spires of naked rock. All were strangely shaped, and the spyglass, which was by 300 or 400 feet the tallest on the island, was likewise the strangest in configuration, running up sheer from almost every side, and then suddenly cut off at the top like a pedestal to put a statue on. I accidentally bit my tongue while I was eating dinner, and so I can feel it rubbing up against the teeth, and it kind of hurts. What is my favorite genre of books? I really like action and adventure. Not exactly fantasy as well, but kind of like that. You know, there's different types of fantasy. You know, there's the fantasy I kind of like more is like dragons and also kind of like pirate. I also like pirate stuff, kind of like this. This one's an older book. I do like classic books. But I'd say I like action, adventure kind of books, especially adventure. You know, let's see. I read Clive Cussler a little bit, and I read Michael Crichton a little bit. I don't have a whole bunch of their books, but I do read them. I also read Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins. They wrote the Left Behind series. Would you say you would like something like the Hardy Boys? It's been a while since I've read the Hardy Boys, but I do really like the Hardy Boys. They're pretty cool. And I also like a whole bunch of apologetics books. I've got a whole shelf here, and then it's kind of bleeding on down into this shelf as well. And then this whole shelf is left behind. Oh, another book I really like is this one right here by Stephen R. Lawhead, Byzantium. I think this kind of really reflects my favorite kind of story to read. It's kind of like a medieval journey type book, which I really like that as well. Let's put that back on the shelf. Well, it's kind of hard to put it back on the shelf. I'll put it back after I start reading, or stop reading, rather. Let's see, where was I? The Hispaniola was rolling, scruppers under, in the ocean swell. The booms were tearing at the blocks. The rudder was banging to and fro, and the whole ship was creaking, groaning, and jumping like a manufactory. I had to cling tight to the backstay, and the world turned giddily before my eyes, for though I was a good enough sailor when there was way on, this standing still and being rolled about like a bottle was a thing I never learned to stand, without a qualm, or so, above all in the morning, on an empty stomach. Perhaps it was this. Perhaps it was the look of the island, with its gray, melancholy woods and wild stone spires, and the surf that we could both see and hear, foaming and thundering on the steep beach. At least, although the sun shone bright and hot, and the shorebirds were fishing and crying all around us, and you would have thought anyone would have been glad to get to land after being so long at sea, my heart sank, as the saying is, into my boots, and from that first look onward I found myself hating the very thought of Treasure Island. We had a dreary morning's work before us, for there was no sign of any wind, and the boats had to be got out and manned, and the ship had to be warped 3 or 4 miles round the corner of the island and up the narrow passage to the haven behind Skeleton Island. Before I turn the page, I'm going to show you the picture right here. That's Jim Hawkins right there, and he's looking at Treasure Island. And I would say, since right there that's the tallest, that is probably Spyglass. The Spyglass that they were talking about, the highest peak that's flat at the top where they put the lookout. Excuse me. Let's continue. Okay. I really should have filled my water before I started. So actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a short break so I can fill my my bottle. So I'm going to mute this real quick, and I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, please. Appreciate that. Alright, I'm back. Note to self, always fill my water before I start. And you're not going, you'll still be there. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Alrighty, where were we? Okay, continuing on. I volunteered for one of the boats, where, of course, I had no business. The heat was sweltering, and the men grumbled fiercely over their work. Anderson was in command of my boat, and instead of keeping the crew in order, he grumbled as loud as the worst. "Well," he said with an oath, "it's not forever." I thought this was a very bad sign, for up to that day, the men had gone briskly and willingly about their business, but apparently the very sight of the island had relaxed the cords of discipline. All the way in, Long John stood by the steersman and conned the ship. He knew the passage like the palm of his hand, and though the man in the chains got more water everywhere than was down on the chart, John never hesitated once. Excuse me. "There's a strong scour with the ebb," he said, "and this here passage has been dug out, in a manner of speaking, with a spade. We brought up just where the anchor was in the chart, about a third of a mile from either shore, the mainland on one side and Skeleton Island on the other. The bottom was clean sand. The plunge of our anchor sent up clouds of birds, wheeling and crying over the woods, but in less than a minute they were down again, and all was once more silent. The place was entirely landlocked, buried in woods, the trees coming right down to high water mark, the shores mostly flat, and the hilltops standing round at a distance in a sort of amphitheater, one here, one there. Two little rivers, or rather 2 swamps, emptied out into this pond, as you might call it, and the foliage round that part of the shore had a kind of poisonous brightness. From the ship we could see nothing of the house or stockade, for they were quite buried among the trees, and if it had not been for the chart or on the companion, we might have been the first that had ever anchored there since the island arose out of the seas. There was not a breath of air moving, or a sound, but that of the surf booming half a mile away, along the beaches and against the rocks outside. A peculiar stagnant smell hung over the anchorage, a smell of sodden leaves and rotted tree trunks. I observed the doctor sniffing and sniffing, like someone tasting a bad egg. "I don't know about treasure," he said, "but I'll stake my wig there's fever here." If the conduct of the men had been alarming in the boat, it became truly threatening when they had come aboard. They lay about the deck, growling together in talk. The slightest order was received with a black look, and grudgingly and carelessly obeyed. Even the honest hands must have caught the infection, for there was not one man aboard to mend another. Mutiny, it was plain, hung over us like a thundercloud. And it was not only we of the cabin party who perceived the danger. Long John was hard at work, going from group to group, spending himself in good advice, and as for example, no man could have shown a better. He fairly outstripped himself in willingness and civility. He was all smiles to everyone. If an order was given, John would be on his crutch in an instant, with the cheeriest "Aye, aye, sir," in the world. And when there was nothing else to do, he kept up one song after another, as if to conceal the discontent of the rest. Of all the gloomy features of that gloomy afternoon, this obvious anxiety on the part of Long John appeared the worst. We held council in the cabin. "Sir," said the captain, "if I risk another order, the whole ship will come about our ears by the run. You see, sir, here it is. I get a rough answer, do I not? Well, if I speak back, Pikes will be going in 2 shakes. If I don't, Silver will see there's something under that, and the game's up. Now, we've only one man to rely on." "And who is that?" asked the squire. "Silver, sir," returned the captain. "He's as anxious as you and I to smother things up. This is a tiff. He'll soon talk 'em out of it if he had the chance. And what I propose to do is to give him that chance. Let's allow the men an afternoon ashore. If they all go, why, we'll fight the ship. If they none of them go, well then, we hold the cabin, and God defend the right. If some go, you mark my words, sir, Silver'll bring 'em aboard again as mild as lambs." It was so decided. Loaded pistols were served out to all the shore men. Hunter, Joyce, and Redruth were taken into our confidence, and received the news with less surprise and a better spirit than we had looked for. And then the captain went on deck and addressed the crew. "My lads," said he, We had a hot day and are all tired and out of sorts. A turn ashore'll hurt nobody. The boats are still in the water. You can take the gigs, and as many as please can go ashore for the afternoon. I'll fire a gun half an hour before sundown. I believe the silly fellows must have thought they would break their shins over the treasure as soon as they were landed, for they all came out of their sulks in a moment, and gave a cheer that started the echo in a faraway hill, and sent the shorebirds once more flying and squalling round the anchorage. The captain was too bright to be in the way. He whipped out of sight in a moment, leaving Silver to arrange the party, and I fancy it was as well he did so. Had he been on deck, he could no longer have pretended not to understand the situation. It was as plain as day. Silver was the captain, and a mighty rebellious crew he had of it. The honest hands, and I was soon to see it proved that there were such on board, must have been very stupid fellows. Or rather, I suppose the truth was this, that all hands were disaffected by the example of the ringleaders, or some more, only some more, some less, and a few, being good fellows in the main, could neither be led nor driven any further. It is one thing to be idle and skulk, and quite another to take a ship and murder a number of innocent men. At last, however, the party was made up. 6 fellows were to stay on board, and the remaining 13, including Silver, began to embark. Then it was that there came into my head the first of the mad notions that contributed so much to saving our lives. If 6 men were left by Silver, it was plain our party could not take and fight the ship, and since only 6 were left, it was equally plain that the cabin party had no present need of my assistance. It occurred to me at once to go ashore. In a jiffy, I had slipped over the side and curled up in the foresheets of the nearest boat, and almost at the same moment she shoved off. No one took notice of me, only the bow-oar saying, "Is that you, Jim? Keep your head down." But Silver, from the other boat, looked sharply over and called out to know if that were I, and from that moment I began to regret what I had done. The crews raced for the beach, but the boat I was in, having some start and being at once the lighter and the better manned, shot far ahead of her consort, and the bow had struck among the shoreside trees, and I had caught a branch and swung myself out and plunged into the nearest thicket, while Silver and the rest were still 100 yards behind. "Jim! Jim!" I heard him shouting, but you may suppose I paid no heed. Jumping, ducking, and breaking through, I ran straight before my nose, till I could run no longer. And that is the end of chapter 13. And now that he's on the island, we're getting really close to one of my favorite characters in the book. I forget his name at the moment, but he's called the Man of the Island. In chapter 15, he's introduced. What is his name? It's like, I forget his name. But anyway, I based a character, the Man of the Island. I don't remember his name. Oh, Ben Gunn, that's his name. Ben Gunn. Yeah, Ben Gunn is my favorite character in this book. And actually, I've got my own book that I'm writing, and it's going to be published before too long, and I'm already writing the second book. And in the second book, I have a character that is based off of the Man of the Island, named Bob, and he is also introduced in a chapter that is called The Man of the Island. So I based a character in my book off of the Man of the Island, Ben Gunn. He also reminds me of Bill Gay. Have you ever seen, what is it, In Search of the Castaways or something like that? It's a Walt Disney film. It's a good movie. But Ben Gunn, Bill Gay, and then there's my character, Bob. Kind of that marooned, mad sailor guy. It's a really interesting type of character to add to a book, I think. Putting these books back. You haven't seen the movie, you're saying? But you need to. Yeah, it's a pretty good movie, I think. I haven't seen it in a while. Alright. You know what? I forgot to put up a poll. I like to put up a poll on these things. Let me go ahead and... It's at the end of the video, so there's really no point, but I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. So, what book should I read after Treasure Island? I need to read a book that is in public domain, so that's classics. So at the moment, all I'm really reading are classics. Because I don't want to get a copyright strike or whatever. So public domain books, let's type this out, after Treasure Island, question mark. So the last poll, it was an option between Oliver Twist and 1984, and Oliver Twist won. So let's do between Oliver Twist this time. And what's another classic book that I can read? How about 5 Weeks in a Balloon by Jules Verne? I've never read it before, but I want to. Weeks in a Balloon. Start. Alright, so I just put out a poll. Those of you who are still watching, go ahead and vote on that. Do I have a set date for the publishing of my book? I do not have a set date yet. I just got the copyright for it. I think it was yesterday or the day before that. So yeah, I just got the copyright for it. And now I need to publish it. The only thing I'm waiting on right now is the cover of the book. I've got a guy designing it. Well, he's doing the front illustration. Once he's got the illustration done, I'm gonna have someone else doing the cover design. They're gonna send that to me, and I'm gonna upload that, and I'm gonna publish it on Amazon. I would hope to get it done and published before Christmas, but that might not happen. At the very latest, I should get my book published by February. It's called Muplion Perdigop Floppencob, a novel of nonsense. Which sounds really silly, and it's supposed to. It's a bunch of gibberish. This is my handwritten copy. Before I got my laptop, I actually wrote out the entire book by hand. It's been in the works since December of 2019, and I'm really close to getting it done. And I'm already writing book 2, and I've got plans for book 3. So book 2 I hope to publish by the end of by the end of next year, and then book 3 I would hope to get done by the year after that. We'll see what happens. Okie dokie. We've got 1 vote for 5 Weeks in a Balloon. Can I get any other votes? I know there's other people watching too. Alright, so tomorrow I'm gonna try to read chapter 14. I'll be on around 10:15, so you can expect me then. If I'm not, that's probably because something turned up and I'm not able to. But I will try to go live tomorrow around 10:15 to read the next chapter. And To those of you who are watching live, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you sticking around. For those of you who watched this video after it is no longer live, thanks for watching all the way to the end. Do I care about historical fiction / adventure? That actually reminds me of a book that I really like. Nick of Time. Really good book. It's a fictional story set in historical places, and I had the second book as well, which was, I actually like the second book better than the first one, but I gave that one away and haven't gotten another copy for myself. But I really like this one. Nick of Time and Time Pirate, both of those really good, by Ted Bell. So those are really good books. And then there's also this book here, Making Bombs for Hitler. Also a good one. It's a historical fiction set in World War II. It's not necessarily adventure, but it's a really good book. Highly recommend it. All right. So again, thanks for sticking around. I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. It looks like 5 weeks in a balloon won. So the next stream, I think I'll do another vote. But for now, 5 weeks in a balloon seems to have won. So thanks for sticking around to the end. If you're not subscribed, please consider it. I really appreciate subscribers. And I will see you all tomorrow, I hope. So let's go ahead and close this off. Y'all have a good night. God bless.